Hello, traders. Cousin Vinny coming to you from theclosingprint.com, October 1st, 2023. Friday's price action saw the JP collar roll out to December, with the S&P 500 struggling to hold on to the 4,300 level. All sectors were oversold and improving, so we'll be looking for a follow-through this week. For most of the week, the S&P 500 faded, with RSI dumping down to the 30 level. MACD and stochastics are set up and ready for a bounce. We did have decent volume on Thursday and Friday, and with the JP collar roll, by the end of the week, it showed really a lack of relevance compared to the 4,300 strike, where we had a massive amount of puts and calls. And with that, the criticism against focusing too much on the JP collars, with a similar observation that too many people believe it to be so meaningful, when in fact by the end of the week it had dropped to a 5 delta and basically worthless to start the trading session on Friday. And with the new levels noted in green, we still see the possibility of a test of the 200-day. Though markets are so oversold, we could see a bounce and a trigger stochastics and MACD if we started to see volume pick up and price rising back above 4,300. The bottom line here, S&P 500 is neutral. We can go in either direction, so we have to wait until Monday to get an idea what the markets are going to do, if oversold conditions lead to more buying, or if we get more oversold and dump down to the 200-day moving average. So wait until Monday and see how the market's set up. By contrast, the NASDAQ did manage to hold on to a positive gain for the week, with a 9% pullback so far from the July high after a 53% gain in the big tech components of the NASDAQ. So we'll be watching for some of those names to follow through this week if we're going to have any kind of bullish start to the fourth quarter, which over the past 25 years has netted around a 14.24% gain during the month of October into the second week of November, and then a follow-through into a Santa Claus rally by the end of the year. So if we were managed to get anywhere near a 32% gain, we may start to see it this week as institutions start buying the dip and stocks rebound to start the week. At the same time, small caps, which were more oversold than the S&P and the Qs, we started off the week with a bounce on Tuesday, following through on Wednesday and Thursday, closing up 0.5% for the week. So if IWM and small cap energy, small cap biotechs, and small cap financials manage a rally, we'll let you know during the live broadcast and trade accordingly. If we see more stocks advancing, that should help the indices. We did have a bounce last week from the minus 30% level on the S&P 500, minus 28 on the mid caps and small caps, and minus 30 on the NASDAQ in the lower panel. So if we get a higher low on this print and a higher high to start the week, that should translate into a more bullish price action starting off the fourth quarter. Additional support for the bulls. We did have some capitulative volume last week and started to see a turn in this indicator, the New York Stock Exchange common stock McClellan volume oscillator. So most stocks saw a lot of extreme selling, not as steep as it was in August, but still down to the green zone. So this could be an indication that we'll start with a bullish tilt to the market on Monday. In addition, SKU managed to drop back down below 135. If this continues lower, that'll show that institutions are hedging less, hedging more when it's above 135, hedging less when it starts to make lower lows and lower highs. We'll look for these blue elder sticks to turn to green and retest the 50-day early this week. If SKU does fall, we would expect to see VIX backing off of this 1920 level that we saw earlier in the week and drop back down into the range below 14 or 15, translating into some volatility sellers as VIX collapses back towards 14. Now, if we start to drop towards the 200-day moving average, I'd expect to see VIX north of 20 by midweek. The 10-year yield is still in a bullish trend, although we did pull back on Friday. We'd need to see this slice through the 9 and 21 day, start to head towards the 50-day to impart more of a bullish tailwind on the S&P 500. I don't see that as likely. More than likely, the 10-year is going to stay up here near the highs for a while, coupled with the dollar. If we can manage both of these, the 10-year and the dollar moving lower, that would impart a bullish tailwind on the equity market and some international markets to start the fourth quarter. For now, the dollar and the 10-year remain in a bullish trend, so that has to be a very obvious break to the downside for these two indicators. In addition, if we see commodities backing off together with the dollar and the 10-year, that could be enough to help us propel higher while crude oil remains near $95 a barrel. Bottom line, there's a lot of moving parts this week, with most of our indicators bearish at 16, with no change from last week, along with 2 neutral and 2 bullish. Bottom line, neutral to bearish, unless we see the bulls show up on Monday and Tuesday. One of those 2 bullish indicators for this week was the oversold conditions on the sectors. You can see we're starting to improve. If you read from left to right in the top panel, you can see that Friday's update gave us more yellow and orange and less crimson red. Also, the international markets started to see about the same, but a little bit of improvement here going into the week. So as these oversold sectors set up on Monday, if we see institutions and portfolio managers coming in, stochastics will start to rise with price and head back towards the 50-day moving average overhead. In each case, the red line, with energy dropping below the 21-day on Friday. So that was noteworthy, with particular focus in the consumer discretionary and retail group, where we started to see some good numbers out of Costco and Lulu, looking for these oversold sectors to catch a bid. Stocks on the watch list have all been screened. Most of these are setting up with oversold stochastics and price action moving higher potentially off of support levels, with the IBD 50 and stocks showing relative strength. Additionally, I ran a scan of oversold conditions where stochastics was turning from below and stocks were pushing higher. I've got my eyeballs on Airbnb. I'd like to start a position there. I'm watching Dell, also Intel and Old Dominion Freight, and Zscaler, which looked particularly good in the weekend scans. Airbnb came back to the 100 period moving average. You can see higher lows. RSI is rising back above 50. Volume starting to pick up again. Stochastics turning along with MACD as a function of price. A push above 140 this week. Take out that Friday wick. Looking for 151 and then 154 potentially, along with an increase in volume. Arista Networks, very similar setup. Stochastics turning. MACD. Just need to see volume pick up. In addition to stocks in the sector, and technology catching a bid would be very helpful in any of these names. Looking forward to Monday and Tuesday. Bill.com Holdings, nice bounce on Thursday and Friday. Trying to get back above the 50-day, descending wedge. RSI back above 50. Stochastics and MACD set up. Volume is what got my attention as well. With stochastics oversold and turning along with MACD, we're looking for this to continue higher to start Monday trading. Dell still consolidating after its earnings. Big volume on that September start. Gap and Go is holding. We're at the 21-day moving average. This reminds me of Facebook back in February, where it came right back down to the 21-day moving average. All the moving averages turned up and to the right and then started trending. 921.50, 200-day, all pointing up and to the right. So you can see Dell with a similar idea. Volume picking up on Friday, stochastics, MACD. Just need to get MACD to turn. That'll happen as a function of price if we start to lift and push above 70 to start the fourth quarter. Equitable holdings, similar setup, except this is a range-bound condition. A move above the highs of this range would signal a breakout. Stochastics and MACD turning. We've got volume showing up. Informatica, another name showing up on the oversold stochastic scan. Turning, MACD turning, volume picking up on Friday. Look for a follow-through this week after it bounced at the 50-day moving average. More than likely going to test the 21 and 22 level. Intel with the bounce midweek. We were looking for a follow-through. We got it Wednesday, Thursday. Doji on Friday. MACD's above 50. Volume starting to pick up as well, so look for Intel to follow through over the next couple of weeks. Remember consumer discretionary and retail I mentioned during the sector analysis. In this video, we are looking for some of these names to follow through. Looking for buyers to come in on Nike as well. After huge volume and a surprise in earnings. Along with Costco, looking for this to break above 570. Stochastics turned up along with MACD. So give it a couple of days on Costco. We're looking for a trade there as well. While we look for Lulu to retest the highs of late August. Old Dominion Freight held up very well as one of the transports that didn't pull back as much as others with the rise in crude oil prices, like we saw with some of the airlines and UPS. We have stochastics turning along with MACD, volume picking up on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and showing relative strength in the sector. As you can see with UPS, which had a more substantial headwind from the increase in oil prices. At the same time, Brent was rising. We had UPS dropping. Also seeing JB Hunt starting to turn the corner as well. If it gets above the 50-day, we could see a retest of 52-week highs. Spotify also showing up on that oversold scan with stochastics turning, looking for MACD and volume to pick up. In addition, some of the security stocks look good, like Okta, OKTA, Zscaler, CrowdStrike. These are all oversold and turning, with most stocks noted below, oversold and ready to turn. It's just a matter of whether institutions show up this week or do they let it move down to the 200-day for good measure. Okay, traders, that's going to do it for me. This is Cousin Vinny coming to you from theclosingprint.com with your weekend video newsletter for October 1st, 2023. I'll send out a watch list of the stocks I think are going to follow through around midnight on the East Coast, around 9 o'clock on the West Coast, so be sure to check your inbox for that. Otherwise, enjoy the rest of your weekend, take care, and we'll see you in the morning. Ciao. And by comparison, Old Dominion Freight held up very well. Also seeing JB Hunt starting to turn the corner as well. If it gets above the 50-day, we could see a retest of 52-week highs. Spotify also showing up on that oversold scan with stochastics turning, looking for MACD and volume to pick up. In addition, some of the security stocks look good, like Okta, OKTA, Zscaler, CrowdStrike. These are all oversold and turning, with most stocks noted below, oversold and ready to turn. It's just a matter of whether institutions show up this week to start, or do they let it move down to the 200-day for good measure. Okay, traders, that's going to do it for me. This is Cousin Vinny coming to you from theclosingprint.com with your weekend video newsletter for October 1st, 2023. I'll send out a watch list of the stocks I think are going to follow through around midnight on the East Coast, around 9 o'clock on the West Coast, so be sure to check your inbox for that. Otherwise, enjoy the rest of your weekend. Take care, and we'll see you in the morning. Ciao.